Good morning, Kinaway members, and thank you for joining us for another episode of Kinaway TV, the first episode for 2022. We hope everyone has had a wonderful start to the year and are ready to get stuck in for the next 12 months. Before we kick things off, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land of which I am coming to you all from. I'd like to also acknowledge the traditional owners of the land in which each and every one of us are tuning in from, and pay respects to elders past, present, and emerging. I'd like to also extend those respects to any Indigenous people who are joining us this morning. For this morning's webinar, we're pleased to have Small Business Commissioner Lynda McAlary-Smith joining us. Lynda commenced her role as a Victorian Small Business Commissioner in August 2021. She's a qualified lawyer and accomplished senior executive with extensive experience working with businesses within Victoria and nationally. Lynda was most recently Executive Director of Regulatory Operations with the Victorian Building Authority, following her time with the National Workplace Regulator, where she held a variety of senior executive roles, including leading the Fair Work Ombudsman's small business strategy, to better help small business operators navigate their workplace rights and obligations. Through her current role, Lynda and the team at the Victorian Small Business Commission are dedicated to providing much needed support to Victorian small businesses, and we are extremely fortunate to have Lynda joining us today as we find out how the Victorian Small Business Commission can support your business. Lynda will talk through how to access the dispute resolution and mediation services of the VSBC and share tips on negotiating and resolving issues yourself. She will also provide an overview of mental health supports for small businesses and other initiatives designed to mitigate the impact of COVID-19, such as the Commercial Tenancy Relief Scheme. Without taking up too much time, I'd like to welcome Lynda to today's webinar.
Thank you. Good morning, James, and hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. It's a privilege to be here.
Wonderful. It's a really a privilege to have you for this morning, Lynda. I know a lot of our members are really excited to hear what you have to say today. So again, without taking up too much time, I'll let you get into your presentation.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, James. And I'd like to also myself acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which we're meeting. For me, that's the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging as well. Thanks so much for the chance to come and chat to you today about the work that the Victorian Small Business Commission does in supporting small businesses across Victoria. I've got a bit of a slide deck here to take you through some different things. Some of the information is a little bit technical about the Commercial Tenancy Relief Scheme, so I'll probably move through that pretty quickly, but you'll have access. I'll make sure you have access to the slides afterwards, and you'll have our contact details if there's things you want to call to as a follow-up as well. So what I'm going to cover off today is the work of the Commission. The Commission sort of sounds like a really sort of formal name, but effectively the Commission is made up of me and a group of wonderful people who are really committed to helping small businesses every day. So we've got a great bunch of people who are really passionate about trying to help keep small businesses out of courts or tribunals, trying to be able to stand in their shoes and understand their worries and their problems and their issues, and be able to help them resolve disputes that they have. The Commission also does a lot of education and advocacy work as well, so that all different types of small business people's voices are heard into a government. A big priority for me now as Commissioner is really significantly increasing the access and the inclusivity of the service that we provide. The feedback we get from customers who've used our services is brilliant, really, really positive, really high resolution rates. But one of the challenges I think we have is that not a lot of people necessarily know about us, or they might feel a bit hesitant or scared to come to us. And what I really want to do is break that down and make sure we're going directly to where all of our amazing small business people are working, and knowing that we've got their back to help them try and resolve disputes if they need to. So really looking forward to some really great stuff that we'll be looking to do with Kinaway in the future to make sure that I can support you in the best way that works for you. So I'll cover off the Commercial Tenancy Relief Scheme. I'll also talk about our dispute resolution processes and some tips and tricks in terms of if you do find yourself in a dispute, and really importantly, of course, resources that are available to support you in looking after your mental health. And that kind of stuff is tricky as a small business person at at the best of time because you're juggling so many different things. But of course, what's happened over the last couple of years and what we've all been living through, just the pressures and stresses financially and emotionally are much higher. So I'll talk you through some of the support that's available to help. So, small business. So we're an independent government agency. So we're funded by government, but we're independent of government. So it's a really important part of my role that there is that independence so that I can tell government when I think that they are doing things wrong or that they could do things in a different way. And it also really encourages small businesses to feel comfortable to talk to us because we are a really small team. So at the Commission at the moment, we've got around 35 staff, and that's with some extra sort of staff on board to help with COVID stuff, but generally speaking, it's around 20. So we're an independent group of people who really focused on helping serve our small business people in a really personalised sort of way. We're not part of a massive department. We're really trying to stay connected to the small businesses that we're trying to help. And as I said, we're here to advocate on broader issues. So the dispute resolution services that we provide, which are either in some cases free or other cases very low cost, around usually $195 for mediation, which you'd pay about $7,000 for, if you're in the you just got it done privately. But a big part of it is that education and information and advice as well. So in terms of who uses this, just to give you a bit of a sense, if you're wondering about whether or not this might be a service that could be good for you to use, sometimes good to know who else has sort of used it. So in the last financial year, we helped over 19,000 small businesses with their inquiries, and that was either through email or telephone call. Over 5,000 small business owners or landlords came to us for help to try and resolve a dispute. And really fantastically, almost 40% of those were resolved without the need to go to mediation. What we see through the dispute resolution experience is that it's often the relationship breakdown, or it's awkwardness because you feel you're entitled to something and the other person's not giving it to you, or someone's wanting something from you that you don't think you have to give them, and it's really uncomfortable. And it can also be even that discomfort and sort of awkwardness can kind of get amplified if it's not just purely a business relationship. So and we see this in a whole range of different sorts of communities as well, and cohorts within the community, is that if the person that you're having a barney with about a business issue, if you're going to see them in your personal life or your broader family and extended community life, it makes the ability to kind of deal with those awkward moments of there being a dispute really hard. And that's one thing our team's really good at doing. We're sort of like the independent person in the middle. Some of the language I use to describe it sometimes is we can be a bit of an icebreaker or a circuit breaker. Because often when someone comes to us and says, look, I've got a problem and I need your help, often when you're talking to them, they're quite upset. The other person might be really upset too. And then just both people having a chance to have a bit of a debrief, bit of a vent about the situation. And then my crew are really skilled at going, okay, yes, we understand all that, and how are we going to resolve this? So it's not so much about a rights-based, it's very much about a relationship-based. It's about being empowered. So I'll talk you through some of the principles around mediation in a little bit. But so yeah, 40% of that gets sorted out with some phone calls or some emails potentially. So without any formal mediation, what have you. So of those that did need to go to mediation, almost 80% of those were resolved. And normally in non-COVID years, it's well over 80%, were resolved through mediation. So if you do have a problem, if you're in a dispute, you come to us, the odds are really good in your favour that you'll walk away with the dispute fixed. And the language that some of our customers use is, weight off their shoulders, such a relief, and then because what we do focus on in the dispute resolution is if you need to have an ongoing relationship, the parties need to have an ongoing relationship, that you can leave it in a way that, you can still look each other in the eye the next time you see them. The best success for us is if we've got small business having a dispute with someone they've got a commercial arrangement with perhaps, and then it could be government, we do that too, and then at the end of the day you'd be happy to do business with them the next day. That's it's not always the way it works out, but that's sort of what we aim for. So in terms of, I'll cover briefly Commercial Tenancy Relief Scheme, because I understand from talking with James and Scott, that the focus of sort of the tenancy issues aren't necessarily so much of an issue for yourselves at the moment. It may well be as your businesses sort of continue to grow, hopefully over the course. But if you are a tenant, or if indeed you have some tenants yourself, so the scheme provides relief for businesses who were really impacted by COVID. So the scheme started middle of last year, and it was meant to stop on the 15th of January. But because of everything with Omicron and people staying home effectively, not spending their money like out on shopping and going to restaurants, cafes, whatever, recognising the impact also of staff shortages. I'm sure you're experiencing that too. How it's hard to get good people at the best of times, but at the moment it's incredibly hard to get staff. It's just the market's really, really hard. So that has an impact, obviously, on small businesses' profitability. So the scheme's been extended until the 15th of March, so an extra 2 months. What the scheme provides is, if you're eligible, and I'll explain that briefly in a minute what that means, you get a proportionate reduction in your rent. You can't be evicted, or your rent can't be increased during this protection period. So that's what we talk about there, about no gap in their supports, because that existed under the previous scheme. And there's some things too, if you're a newer business, like you might have only started in the last little while, but you have been impacted by COVID, and that means your turnover has taken a big hit. There's still options for support. So what does this mean in terms of our role? So we're here to help. We're providing advice and information about the scheme. There's heaps of information on our website. So if you are impacted or think this might be something that could be useful to you, or someone you know might be a tenant or a landlord that might need to know this, all of this info is on our website, and we've got heaps of, hopefully, plain as it can be, plain English questions, frequently asked questions, where we've tried to answer it without all the legalese. Can't always achieve that, but we've tried our hardest. So we're providing free help and free mediation. So if you're impacted by COVID and you've got a dispute relating anything to do with your rent relief, or if you're a landlord and you're in that might be your small business, you can get free. There's no charge whatsoever. If the mediations aren't successful, I can also issue some binding orders prescribing what the rent relief should be. I won't get too bogged down in all of this today. I'll fly through the next couple of slides pretty quickly. You'll have them in the slide deck if you need them, and there is more information available on our website at vsbc.vic.gov.au, and we've also got a number you can call, which is 13 VSBC as well. Talk to a real person. So to be eligible for the extended relief, you have to have had a turnover of less than $10 million, and the decline in turnover at least 30%, and not excluded, which basically means, in short, you're not insolvent, you're not going through a liquidation process effectively. There's a comparison period. So when you're working out what the turnover is, to compare, the starting point effectively is you take your turnover in January 2020, so pre-COVID. You take January 2020 and compare that to January 2022. If your turnover is down more than at least 30%, you could be entitled to the rent relief. And there's some different date windows there that can get a little bit tricky. So if you think you might be eligible, I encourage you to jump on the website and have a look. We've got some flow charts too to try and simplify it all. So there's some requirements that you need to do if you do want to avail yourself of this, which the most important one is you need to put in a formal request to your landlord requesting it, and you need to provide evidence of that, including could be a BAS statement, could be accounting record from your accountant, and you've got to do a statutory declaration to say that everything that you're giving to your landlord is true. So they then need to come back to you within 14 days. And what does this mean in real terms? So it means that you get to, if you're eligible and you've applied properly, then you only have to pay the proportion of your rent which matches the turnover that you have. So I'll use a $10,000 a month example just because it's easy for my bad maths brain. So say the rent was $10,000, which I know is a lot and might not apply in your context, but it's just easier for me with my numbers. So $10,000 a month. So let's say your turnover's down 40%. So you'd still have to pay the 6,000, which is equal to the 60%, and then you've got 40%, 4,000, which is eligible for the rent relief. So half of that, so 2,000, gets waived. You never have to pay that. That doesn't get called back later. It's gone forever. And the other $2,000, the other 50%, that goes to be deferred to be paid back on a stretched out period starting from after mid-March. So, and as I mentioned at the start, there's some protections around eviction and rent increases. So if you are in this situation, and there are some formal steps you need to jump through. So we've done some template draft letters, so you can just pop your stuff in and send it off to your landlord. So if you are in that situation and you haven't been able to reach an agreement with your landlord, very happy for you to come to us, encourage you to come to us. That's what we're here for. And the case officer will contact you and the landlord, try and have a conversation to sort things out. And then if not, we've got a great team of mediators who can help as well, who are all really lovely as well. And a special shout out to Diane as well, who does brilliant mediations for us. And she's a really good example, I think, of as well the type of people who we try to bring on board as our mediators, who are empathetic. It's not just about the law. In mediation, it's very often not about the law. It's about, okay, what's the best solution here? What's the best way forward for both parties? So if you were getting involved in a mediation, and this is just as true for general business disputes that you might come to us for as well, you get flexibility. So they're very experienced mediators that are external to us. They work with small businesses every day of the week. They're small business people themselves as well. And they will really and usually have a call with you before the mediation, just to kind of suss out things with you and make sure you feel comfortable, answer any questions. So during COVID, we used to do all our mediations face to face. During COVID, we had to swap to doing it totally virtually. So we're looking at this at the moment when we're allowed back into offices a bit more, exploring what does this look like, because the virtual's been amazing with the feedback. Businesses have said we love it because it's don't have to worry about going into the city and getting a park and all that hassle. And also they're doing it from the safety and comfort of somewhere that they feel safe. So that could be at home, could be in their workplace, or you jump into a mediation at your workplace and then you can get straight back into work afterwards. But there's other things that we know that sometimes face-to-face can be really beneficial as well. So we don't want to lose that side of stuff as well. So I've actually been having some conversations with Kinaway around what the opportunities are to make sure that we could have a mediation service that would work really well for yourselves in a way that you were really comfortable to access it. It was a positive experience and you really felt that it was tailored to what you needed as well. A big part about mediation is you're empowered. If you go to court or a tribunal with a business dispute, which most people don't, unless you get dragged to court, most people go too much time, too much stress, too much conflict, particularly if you have that, as I said, that overlay of personal relationships with people too, that you might have a business right and you go, well, look, I delivered this or I provided this service and this other person hasn't paid me, this business hasn't paid me, and that's not fair, but I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want to be seen to be the one necessarily challenging it, or if I push it really hard, then I'm going to get other people saying to me, what are you doing? You're giving that kind of business a hard time. If they know them as well. So one of the really good things about mediation is you're very much empowered. You're not losing control. You're not handing over the outcome to a judge or a tribunal member. You get to agree with whatever you choose to in the mediation. And sometimes that means you'll say no. Not agreeing, not having a mediation settled to doesn't mean then you have to go off to court. You might say, well, look, I've got this issue. It could be, you haven't been paid for time that you've provided. Could be you ordered something that you got that wasn't what the quality was, or what have you, or a whole range of business disputes, as you guys will all painfully know, I'm sure, can come up. It's sort of only limited. The types of disputes we come across are limited only by human behaviour. So in other words, totally unlimited. We've sort of seen every different type of dispute you can kind of imagine. But part of it is what we find with a lot of people is they come to us. Hopefully we can resolve it without a mediation. If we can't, most of them get resolved in mediation. And then if they're not, if you're in that smaller bucket of people for whom you've given that a go and it just hasn't worked, you're in charge of what happens next. You don't have to then go to court. You don't then have to go to a tribunal. You don't have to, you don't have to take any steps. You might choose to, that's completely fine too, but you're in control the whole way. And hopefully that's a really important thing that we can offer about resolving disputes, is that you're in control of it. One thing that's certain about going to court is everybody's a loser. There might be one person who sort of nominally wins, but they'll have extra costs. Everyone has the stress, and it's something to be avoided if possible. I should say too, so we have no definition of small business. As far as we're concerned, if you consider yourself to be a small business, we will help you. I think in our history, we've only had to turn away once a company listed on the stock exchange where we said, okay, you can go and sort stuff out yourself. You've got your resources. But generally speaking, we don't want to waste time. How many staff do you have? What's your turnover for our general business disputes? All that kind of stuff. If you think you're a small business, that's good enough for us. So we're here to help with any disputes. So not consumer, like in terms of retail, if you think about that like a direct customer, but if your customer is another business, that would fall within our remit. Any business-to-business dispute includes government and not-for-profits as well. I've got some examples there around undelivered goods or quality of goods or services or unpaid invoices. But as I said, the types of disputes are kind of unlimited in terms of what we can deal with. So just really encourage you, if you do have a bit of a sticky moment, we're here to help, and you can call our contact centre, have a chat with them, talk through and see if this might be something that could be helpful to you. In terms of, I'll just go back before we go into mental health, in terms of some tips from a business dispute perspective, one of the things that I get the feedback from the mediators on, which is really helpful, and this is whether you use our services or you're dealing with this yourself, is often trying to think about it, particularly if you're dealing with big corporations or governments or stuff, you're needing sort of some, you're wanting them to change their mind on something, is looking at it through the provision of not so much a demanding of a right, but rather sort of that more seeking their, not a favour, because that's not great language, but you're sort of, if you're trying to influence them, you're trying to get them to understand. So standing in, if you're having an issue with someone, another business or governments, kind of taking a moment to kind of think, okay, well, what's driving them? Okay, and you might be, if you use a big organisation, you might be dealing with, okay, well, they'll have a manager who they'll be accountable to, and they'll have, policies and all this kind of stuff. So, a good example of some of the stuff around power and things like that and bills and stuff is that some of the great stuff that happens in that space is, okay, well, what part of my story or what can I share and what context can I give the person on the other end of the phone? What can I give them that they can then give their manager to justify why I need a break cut, basically? Why do they need to deviate from their policy? Why do they need to do something differently for me to help me when maybe they don't have to? So that falls into the buckets where at the moment, particularly with challenges of COVID, that you might be sort of seeking some sort of, grace, if you like, or, some extensions or what have you, or, just needing a bit of a break from a larger organisation. That's sort of a tip. One of the other things with the general disputes is so easy for me to say and so much harder to do in practice, is to try and assume the best of the other person that you're dealing with and to try and take the personal side out of it. And I think that's one of the challenges. And I grew up in a small business household. My mum and dad had a small business, so I lived and breathed it, so I know what it is like. It's really hard when you're a small business, particularly if you're like a sole trader, or you're just starting out, or you might just have one or two employees, or a handful. It is really personal, and it's not like you have your life divided in, this is my small business and then this is the rest of my life. That's just not the way that it works. It's all melded in together. So when you are having disputes or moments of conflict with others in your business, it's actually sometimes really hard to try and disconnect the personal from it and the feelings, and to sort of go, okay, how do I just put my commercial hat on here, right? What's the best outcome, or what, particularly at the moment with COVID, what's the least worst outcome. So a lot of the stuff we've been working with businesses on when they're in dispute with each other at the moment is, I won't say what's the resolution that they're happy with, but what's the resolution do you think that you could live with? And one of the things that our mediators always try to do too, and also our dispute resolution officers sort of at that front end, is try and look at it through the lens of everybody leaves with dignity. So it's not that there's one big winner and someone else has had to do everything. It's that everybody walks away kind of going, well, I didn't necessarily get everything that I wanted, but I didn't lose everything either. And that they can see the same with that with the other person, so that at the end of the process, be it a formal mediation, or even if you're sorting, you don't come to us at all and you've got to hit a bit of a road bump with someone or another organisation, taking that approach of how do I make sure that at the end, I feel like I can look them in the eye, and that I've got dignity in the way that I've dealt with myself and what the outcome is, and also they have as well. And what we found and what a lot of research shows is that can be a really powerful way to sort of get through to a dispute, rather than I'm demanding you do this and then they are saying no, you do this, and coming at it from a business perspective of, like, you make all the tough decisions, exciting at times obviously as well, but often tough decisions about where to spend your time and money. And with any business dispute, you have to be really commercially brutal about that. And you might, for example, have someone who hasn't paid an invoice to you, and it might be a couple of $100, and that is not saying that's not a lot of money. That's every dollar counts, and it's all your blood, sweat, and tears. And that's really important. But then you go, okay, well, how much am I going to invest in this? Like your time and energy and your worries and stress. There might be other disputes that are of nominal dollar value, but actually it's really important for a particular issue that you're dealing with your business, that you deal with that dispute and that it gets sorted. And it's not actually so much about the money. But I think where you do have a dispute, if you can really sort of, as much as you can, put a bit of that kind of tough business lens on it and say, okay, well, do I need to, can we resolve it? Yes, no. How much do I invest in trying to resolve it? Do I walk away or not? But I think one thing I would say, that as you're starting out in your business, you've obviously gone into something that you're passionate about, you're good at, you've got a great service or offering or product, what have you, to offer to the community, and you want to sort of be able to do that. So you've got that natural passion. And then having to deal with all this business stuff sometimes it's like a totally different language. It's a different skill set. So I think it's really important to acknowledge that that's true and that that's okay. You're not expected to know everything sort of about running a business on day one when you're starting out. Some of the CEOs of the biggest companies in Australia would say that they're still learning about different ways to do business, and better ways to do business. So there's a lot of great support available to help you figure out some of this sort of stuff, to build up your confidence to be able to run your business really well. So there's a lot of information available on business.vic.gov.au. There's some great grants and initiatives to sort of encourage and support businesses, but more broadly, even than just financial support, there's also some great learning materials and like training you can do, like online courses, actual training you can do. I know Kinaway is really active in this space about trying to help make sure that you're all able to live your dreams with your businesses and build a business that's really sustainable and well. Prior to this role, and as James sort of said at the start, I spent a very long time as a regulator of workplaces. So over the course of that, I've seen across thousands and thousands of businesses right across Australia, every industry you can imagine, every type of size of business you can imagine. And one of the things I'd sort of reflect to you with my combined experience is that one of the really important things about being able to grow a business that's sustainable in the longer term and is a good, prosperous business and rewarding for you too, is that nature of those relationships and how you treat people, and how you communicate both to your external, your customers, your suppliers, your other networks, and also to your staff as well. Generally speaking, if you're going into it, as I know you will be, with that basis of I'm going to treat people like I would like to be treated, and that includes people who might be working for me, that includes people I might be contracting with or dealing with, that's a really good, really good starting point. And I think particularly at the moment, we all know in Victoria especially about the challenges that everybody's been living through the last couple of years as well, on top of whatever other challenges their life has presented to them already. So we're talking a lot to people about empathy and trying to be empathetic to the other person. Now, look, so I'm not saying that there's not some rat bags out there that you'll come across and you'll have to deal with. We're here to help deal with those too. But by and large, there's some of the good business practices I've sort of seen over the years, and making sure you're connected to good advice. So being a member of Kinaway is brilliant. If I could wave a magic wand and have every small business person join an association, a chamber, an industry group, whatever, I would in a heartbeat, because I have just seen over the years that you will be a better business person because you are. Your business will be better. You will be more comfortable in how you're running your business because you get great advice. It's really tailored from people who understand your context. Government tries really hard to get stuff right, but at the end of the day, it's really hard for them to stand in your shoes. So staying connected to your community and your advisors who get your context is really important. Now, I know we wanted to have some time for questions, so I'll just quickly move through about looking after your mental health. So obviously, running a small business is not a picnic at the best of times. It's exciting and it's amazing and so energizing, but gosh, it can be tough at times. My parents' company actually didn't survive showing my age now, but didn't survive the 1990s recession, and that sort of fundamentally changed my family's life. But, the way that they were able to sort of navigate through that, has been a great character building exercise for me. And one thing that we've really learned, I think, in recent years is that it's okay to talk about our mental health. It's okay to go, what's really tough right now. I need a bit of a hand. There's no shame in asking for help. There's some great resources available that the government's put in place with COVID. So Partners in Wellbeing, which is on the screen there, which is available 7 days a week. It provides mental health coaches who can help you improve how you're feeling about things, and with coaching strategies. So not just now, but giving you some tips and tricks about what you can do to help support your mental health yourself. They've also got financial experts. So the last one's a bit of a sleeper there. It's brilliant. So free financial advice. If you've got some debt or you questions about your financial sort of things or what to do, you can get free financial counselling at the moment, which is brilliant. There's also some great resources available through Beyond Blue, through a new access specifically for small business owners such as yourself, which is a free program tailored specifically to small businesses. So the people you're dealing with have run small businesses and get it, and work with you just to work through some challenges that you might have, and also those practical skills and tips. And of course, it's been a really tough time. There are kind of no words to describe the last couple of years. So I want to make sure that you know that Lifeline's available if you or anyone you know is really, really struggling. There are supports that are available to help. We've actually worked with Beyond Blue to develop a small business owner's guide to creating a mental health plan for themselves, because, it's a bit like on the planes where they talk about putting your oxygen mask on first before you put them on your kids, which is kind of hard to think, but it's what you're meant to do. And it's really true. Like, if you're providing for your family, for yourself, even for your family, you might be employing people and you bear the weight of providing for their family too. There's a lot going on. So making sure you're looking after yourself is really, really important, physically, of course, as well. But mental health is obviously at the core. So there's a great guide. It's available on our website around, it's pretty short and sharp, about how to create a mental health plan to look after you. Because if you don't look after yourself, that's not good for the business. It's not good for your family either. If you do have staff, that workplace wellness is really important, particularly if you're still kind of in a virtual or hybrid model. There's some great information available at headsup.org.au, which can take you through training and strategies to support staff, and how to have conversations with your staff. And this goes to that skill bit I was talking about. One of the hardest things for us to do as humans is to have those really difficult conversations that might be confronting about an issue. And that could be to staff as well, or it could be that you're worried about them as well. So there's some great strategies on there through an employer context about how you can help look after your staff to make sure they're travelling okay as well. And if they're not, that you can connect them up with the support that they need. Shout out for our website, vsbc.vic.gov.au. You'll see there's a big blue banner there. I've done if you are, because there's a lot of content there. If you do need all that technical stuff I talked about at the start about the tenancy relief, just hunt that blue button on the website, which hopefully is up there, so you'll be able to find that pretty easily. We're here to help, so you can catch us on our website. We've got our phone number where you can talk to a real person. You can shoot us an email. We're happy to communicate like that. And we're on across social media as well. We put out a fair bit of content about updates and stuff in there. So I encourage you to follow us through your chosen channel or channels, because we do put out a lot of updates and information. And as the world's changing with COVID so rapidly, we're trying to keep pushing out information to small business in a timely way about what the rules are too. So, well, I think that sort of brings the end to my slideshow. So I'm really happy to answer any questions in the time that we have available.
Take myself off mute. Wonderful. Thanks for that, Lynda. That was a really great presentation. We did get a couple of questions come through. Before we bring the first one up, I'm going to ask a quick one myself. So, with the actual, dispute sort of resolution process, is there sort of support in actually defining the dispute? So, for example, some of our members mightn't have that, sort of legal or financial sort of expertise. So,
yeah, absolutely. We can connect people up with too. So we can give a bit of advice around the edges because we're independent. We can't be like really specific, but we will. Yeah, there's free financial counselling you can get even more broadly than the one I talked about. But yeah, you could talk to someone at our office who understands the laws, give people a bit of a steer. Sometimes people call up and we go, we'll just say, no, you haven't got that right. That's, you've misunderstood that. And then specific stuff, we can connect them with other community support and things like that as well.
Wonderful. Lovely. I believe we do have another question, and this one is from Elizabeth Little. She asked, what happens if businesses have gone direct to a lawyer? Can a lawyer be involved in mediation, or can you go back to mediation if you're or the other party have engaged a lawyer?
Absolutely. Lawyers, we will regularly have lawyers who are involved in mediations. Absolutely, that's no problems whatsoever. Getting good advice, is a great idea. And if you've got existing relationships with lawyers, that's fantastic. There's some cool stuff happening in the digital space too, with respect to getting legal advice from. So as opposed to go to a lawyer and then bill shock at the end, how much is it going to cost? There's some law firms now that are working in the digital space where you can kind of just briefly describe your problem and then they'll give you a fixed quote that will only charge you this much to help you. So that can sometimes help if you're thinking about getting legal advice. So I encourage you to, I can't recommend anyone obviously, but jump on Google and what you'll find it pretty quickly. Lawyers very welcome, and it's not uncommon for us to have lawyers representing both parties. Our mediators are also very experienced at if one party is represented and the other's not, because that can sometimes create a little bit of a power imbalance. But our mediators are very experienced at making sure that if the party is unrepresented, that they're not getting pushed around, so to speak, in the mediation.
Absolutely. We have another comment here. Great work. Thank you very much. Okay. And I believe in terms of the actual questions, I think that's all we have received this morning. So this will be available to view at a later date as well on the Kinaway socials and the website too. So I'm sure that we'll receive a lot more questions, and we'll be sure to sort of forward them through to VSBC, and we'll try get the appropriate answers. So I just want to give you a big thanks to yourself, Lynda, for joining us today and giving a really engaging presentation this morning. About some supports available, and which will really benefit our members. So just on behalf of Kinaway and our membership base, we'd like to thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, James. And thanks to everyone for dialing in or who's watching it later. And thank you to Katani in the background, who's been working her magic as well. That's greatly appreciated. The takeaway is just give us a call. If you've got a problem and you're not sure, give us a call. And if we can't help you, we'll make sure we connect you up with who can. And good luck with your businesses. I look forward to coming in, and I've been having some chats with Scott around being able to connect with some of you. I love hearing stories about the cool stuff people are doing with their business. businesses. So watch out, I'll be coming to pick your brain about hearing all the exciting stuff that you're thinking of doing as well. So thanks everybody, stay safe, and thanks again for the opportunity.
Thanks, Lynda. And just on that note, I'd like to thank all our members who joined us today. Don't forget to keep an eye out for our upcoming webinars and plenty of networking events that we're starting to roll out later this month. If you do wish to attend either webinars or these events, please jump onto the Kinaway website to register your interest. And again, if you wish to catch up on any previous panel discussions or webinars, feel free to jump onto the Kinaway website and YouTube channels where you'll be able to access them. Until then, don't forget to check out any other support services on our website, and feel free to reach out to the Kinaway team should you require any assistance. Also, please don't forget to leave a like on today's video, subscribe, and turn on the notifications. Thank you again to all who joined us. We hope you have a wonderful Friday and an even better weekend.
Awesome. Thanks, James. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.